Okay, so what if I told you uh, there's this place, right?
Hmm.
And it's older than the Great Pyramids of Egypt, older than Stonehenge by like thousands of years.
You must be talking about Gobekli Tepe.
Exactly. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're venturing out to southeastern Turkey, virtually, of course, to try and, well, unearth the secrets of Gobekli Tepe.
Oh, it's an absolutely incredible site. Just fascinating.
Right.
And today, for this deep dive, we're not just going to, marvel at how old it is, which is amazing in itself.
Yeah, the age alone is staggering.
But our mission really is to dig into all that animal symbolism. It's everywhere there. And we've got some really compelling academic research to look at. Stuff that offers maybe a different angle, a fresh perspective.
Okay.
Moving beyond just the simple idea of, they were scared of wild animals.
Right, this sort of standard interpretation we often hear, fear of the wild.
Exactly. And we'll also touch on how this incredible site gets represented in, various audiovisual media, films, documentaries, that kind of thing.
Okay, let's unpack that traditional view first.
Okay.
When you see all those animal carvings at Gobekli Tepe, I mean, snakes, foxes, wild boars, just etched onto these enormous T-shaped pillars.
Yeah, they're striking.
The initial thought for many archaeologists was, okay, this represents the untamed wilderness, maybe spiritual beliefs tied to those specific creatures.
Right, and that suggested a relationship that was maybe a bit hands-off between early humans and the animal kingdom.
A certain distance, yeah.
That was a reasonable place to start, definitely. It kind of fit with the idea of limited direct interaction. But exciting new findings are, they're pushing back against that narrative.
How so?
By looking really closely at recent archaeofaunal data, that's the animal bone evidence from the area.
Okay.
And crucially, considering these ancient trap areas that were likely operating near Gobekli Tepe, when you put those pieces together, a very different picture starts to emerge.
Ah, okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. Trap areas.
Exactly. So the new hypothesis, the alternative perspective, suggests the animal symbolism might be deeply connected with rituals.
Rituals involving.
Specifically, rituals that could have involved pretty dramatic, maybe even deadly encounters between humans and animals. And possibly even staged conflicts between different kinds of animals.
Staged animal fights. Way back then.
Potentially. And these events, these rituals, might have actually happened in those trap areas. They'd be kind of like natural arenas.
So the big takeaway here then, it's not just about fear. Those carvings might actually show organized, maybe dangerous rituals, contests even.
That's the idea. It suggests a much more active, maybe even a more brutal relationship than we first thought.
A much closer, more intense interaction.
Precisely. It moves us way beyond just humans were scared of the dark and the beasts.
Yeah.
And what's really remarkable is just the sheer variety of animals they depicted. We're talking at least 28 different species identified from the carvings.
28. So it's not just generic monsters or fantasy creatures.
Not at all. It's like a snapshot of the actual wildlife living in that region back then. Real animals.
So the local fauna, depicted in intense situations. Okay, there's one image I've seen mentioned that really sticks out. A human figure holding its phallus, positioned between two predators.
Yes, that's a really crucial image. Quite striking, as you say.
What could that possibly mean?
Well, when you look at alongside another carving that might show a human who's just had a successful encounter with an aurochs, a wild bull.
Okay.
And you consider that the phallic representation could point towards something like an initiation rite.
Like a rite of passage, proving yourself.
Possibly. It starts to suggest we might be looking at narrative sequences, stories told in stone.
Like a prehistoric storyboard?
Kind of. Instead of just static symbols of animal or danger, these can be visual tales depicting specific achievements, ritual transitions, important events.
So another key insight. These aren't just isolated pictures, but maybe parts of larger stories.
That's a strong possibility.
And it's not just that one image, is it? I remember reading about Pillar 27 in Enclosure C. Something about a wild boar and a feline.
That's right. A very dynamic scene. A wild boar that looks like it's about to be attacked by a big cat, possibly a leopard.
Intense.
And then there's the sabers carving, which is maybe even more explicit. It really conveys this sense of intense human manipulation of animals, whatever the outcome of the encounter.
Okay. So these scenes, plus the idea of organized deadly confrontations, these contests, it all starts to sound much more plausible if you imagine them happening in those entrapment areas you mentioned.
Exactly. Those areas would have provided the perfect sort of controlled environment for staging such events.
Yeah.
Dangerous, yes, but controlled.
There's even that one detail, isn't there, about a leopard carving where its ribs are really visible.
Yes, that's a fascinating detail, almost like it was deliberately starved.
To make it more aggressive for one of these contests.
That's one interpretation, yes. It certainly suggests intentional human intervention, doesn't it? Trying to heighten the drama or the danger.
Wow.
And add another layer to this. Often the animals shown in an attack pose are also depicted with a phallus.
Right. You mentioned the phallus earlier with the human figure.
Yes, but here it's on the attacking animals. This might suggest these events, these contests, were maybe timed to coincide with the animal's mating season?
Why would they do that?
Perhaps increased aggression during mating season? Or maybe it added another layer of ritual significance related to fertility, life, death cycles. It's speculative, but suggestive.
Interesting. And the Sabris wall carving you mentioned?
Ah, yes, the one possibly showing a naked person, maybe an adolescent, seemingly provoking a wild bull.
Provoking a bull.
It looks that way. And again, this reinforces the idea of these controlled but incredibly dangerous interactions. And the trap areas seem like the logical place for such performances, let's call them.
And the time scale here is just immense. These structures, these carvings, they are used and possibly added to for over 1,000 years.
That's a crucial point. It strongly suggests these weren't just, one-off weird events.
Right. This was embedded, part of their culture.
Deeply embedded, reflected in rituals that likely spanned many, many generations.
Okay, so this whole picture really challenges the idea that animal symbolism only came about because of domestication, right? Controlling animals.
Exactly. Domestication was certainly happening elsewhere in the region around that time, or starting to. But the specific faunal evidence at Gobekli Tepe itself doesn't strongly point towards managed herds in the same way as, say, at another site called Halen Chemi.
So the intense focus on animals at Gobekli Tepe might have a different root.
It seems likely. This alternative view suggests a more interactive process, perhaps driven by the economy and the activities surrounding those entrapment areas.
Which would require close, frequent, intense contact with wild animals.
Precisely. And while, the traditional view often painted the animals at Gobekli Tepe as purely wild, totally beyond human influence, recent advances in how we analyze animal bones, the Archaeology or faunal methods, are actually starting to question that clear-cut distinction. Maybe there is more management or interaction than we assumed.
So it wasn't just about gaining control through domestication later on. It was maybe this earlier, more intense, ritualistic interaction first.
That's certainly what this new perspective suggests.
Yeah.
A more complex, dynamic interplay.
This really does shift how we might think about early Neolithic life, doesn't it? That human-animal relationship.
It absolutely does.
Okay, let's pivot a bit. Gobekli Tepe is such a massive, monumental discovery. It's obviously captured the public imagination. How's it been treated in, films, TV, documentaries?
That's a really important question. How does this complex site get translated for a wider audience? Its cultural impact, its heritage. And we have seen it pop up in quite a few places, documentaries, definitely things like Gizemli Tari Gobekli Tepe or Gobekli Tepe Dunyanin ilk tapınağı.
Okay, the factual approach.
But also animation. There's a Turkish animated film, Rafadan Tayfa 2, Gobekli Tepe.
Really? An animated film?
Yep. And even a major fictional streaming series, Atiye, which you might know as The Gift internationally.
Right, I've heard of that one. So it's crossed over from archaeological journals to Netflix.
Pretty much.
What's the main goal with these different portrayals? Are they trying to educate, entertain, something else?
Well, the goals really vary. A big aim often is just raising public awareness, letting people know this incredible place exists and why it's important.
Sure.
But the accuracy of the information presented and how much of the site's actual heritage significance comes across, that can differ quite significantly depending on the format.
So a key takeaway is media helps get the word out, but we need to be aware that interpretations can vary a lot.
Absolutely. Caveat emptor, viewer beware.
Can you give us some specific examples? How do they tackle it differently? Let's start with the documentary, Gizemli Tari Gobekli Tepe.
Okay, so that one really focuses on the historical angle. The construction, how it was built, how it was discovered, what we currently understand about it. It uses a lot of questions and answers, animations, interviews with experts.
Trying to explain the facts?
Yes, but often leaning into the mystery surrounding the site, too. That's a common hook.
Okay. Seems fairly straightforward. What about the animated film, Ramadan Taifa 2? That must be different.
Oh, very different. It blends a fictional story, obviously, with historical and archaeological bits. It shows the ancient structures, the motifs, but uses its cartoon characters to make the information accessible, especially for kids.
Fun, but maybe less accurate.
Well, it even includes things like time travel and the characters interacting with the builder, so yeah, lots of creative freedom there. Entertainment and engagement are clearly priorities, perhaps over strict academic detail.
Makes sense for animation. And Atai, or The Gift, you said that one was more mystical.
Exactly. Ati presents Gobekli Tepe as this profoundly mystical place, full of ancient secrets. The plot directly links the site to the main character's destiny, her family history, and throws in supernatural events.
So heavy on the symbolism and mystery.
Very much so. The symbolic value, the connection to ancient, possibly esoteric knowledge is really foregrounded.
It really sounds like each type of media offers a totally different window onto the site.
Mm-hmm.
What about promotional films? Something like Gobekli Tepe, 0 point in time.
Right. That one functions more like a showcase. It positions Gobekli Tepe as this crucial 0 point for understanding the ancient world, the dawn of civilization almost.
Highlighting its importance.
Yes, emphasizing the incredible age, the monumental scale of the architecture, and its potential connection to the beginnings of agriculture. It's designed to impress you with its significance.
So it seems like, well, all these media help bring Gobekli Tepe into the public eye, which is great. The way they interpret it can be really different. Sometimes leaning more towards a good story or entertainment than maybe the precise archaeological picture.
That's a really critical point to remember. These portrayals definitely spark interest, and that's valuable, but they are interpretations. Details get simplified, sometimes changed for the sake of narrative or visuals.
But hopefully the core importance comes through.
Often, yes. What usually shines through, regardless of the approach, is the fundamental value of Gobekli Tepe. This astonishing achievement of early humans right at that pivotal moment when societies were transitioning toward agriculture. It showcases incredible innovation in building, amazing artistic expression.
Yeah, you can't really miss that monumental aspect.
No, you can't.
Okay, so let's try and sum this up. Our understanding of Gobekli Tepe is clearly still evolving, isn't it?
Definitely. It's a very active area of research.
The animal symbolism, it seems, likely points to a much more interactive, complex relationship between humans and animals than we maybe first thought.
Mm-hmm. Potentially involving these elaborate rituals, maybe even staged encounters or contests, not just simple fear.
Right. And while films and TV shows are playing a big role in introducing this incredible site to the world.
Yeah, bringing it to millions.
They do so through very different lenses, sometimes prioritizing engagement or mystery over strict historical or archaeological accuracy.
Yeah, exactly. It's a mix out there.
Which leads us to, I guess, a final thought for you listening. Considering this compelling evidence, or at least this strong hypothesis, about intense human-animal interaction at Gobekli Tepe,
Yeah.
how might this challenge our wider understanding of early human societies, the development of ritual behavior, especially when you compare it to the simpler, sometimes more passive narratives we often get in popular media?
It really makes you question those neat, tidy stories about the past, doesn't it? What other complexities are we missing?
Absolutely fascinating stuff to think about. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the mysteries and interpretations of Gobekli Tepe and you want to explore more incredible historical sites and the latest research, make sure to like this video, please subscribe to the channel for more discussions like this, and definitely share your thoughts down in the comments below.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
What were your initial reactions to these alternative ideas about the animal symbolism? Did it surprise you? Or maybe you have a favorite film or documentary about Gobekli Tepe? Let us know. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.